Welcome to Back Talk Teen. I'm your host, Julia, and I'm here today with Ashley and Bree to talk to a very interesting person. His name is Mike Catarazzolo.
Hello.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
And remember, if you have anything to say during this interview, you can call into YBA 508-202-4779.
Okay, so Mike, first of all, I want to know, what's the difference between being blind and visually impaired?
Well, I think the interchangeable. I think when people hear blind, they think automatically you have no vision at all. When we use blind, we are talking about a legal term which is called legally blind. That's someone having a little bit of vision to no vision. And those individuals can receive special services from cities, the state, and from the federal government. And if you want to put numbers on it, they put 20 over 200s, what you see at 200 feet. A person who's legally blind sees that at 20 feet with correction or with glasses. Or their peripheral vision is narrowed down to 20 degrees and with correction. Those individuals can receive special services.
Oh, wow,
So when
that's
you
really
were
interesting.
in school, did you receive any special services?
Well, let me say, I went to a school when I was very young. I went to a Catholic school. And unfortunately, at that time, fortunately, I had a little more vision. And the nuns thought when I didn't show that I could read or see the print, they thought I was faking. So it became a negative experience for me. Mm-hmm. So as each year went by, I became very negative towards school. And one of my major problems was I didn't learn to read until I was 22.
Wow, how did you finally learn to read?
One day, always, because I always would go to have my eyes checked. And I went to the Mass Eye and Ear, and I was sitting in the room, and I had a resident who was going to be a doctor, an ophthalmologist. And he was checking my eyes, and I happened to be, at the time, I was 22 years old. And I couldn't read. I couldn't get a job, and I was very frustrated with everything. So I sat there, and I just started to cry. Tears came to my eyes, and he was looking at me. And I said, I wish I could read. I wish I could see print. Fate is a funny thing. As I was sitting there, this doctor walked by where I was sitting, and he called out the doctor and said, "Doctor, can I speak to you a moment?" And the doctor went out, and he came back a minute later, the resident, and he said, "Mr. Catarazzolo, why don't you go with Dr. Sloan?" So I got up, and I followed this Dr. Sloan. And I went into his office, and he had this large, beautiful office, mahogany furniture, and on the walls were all these glasses, these various types of glasses. He said, "Mr. Catarazzolo, I may have something for you." So he sat me down, and he gave me this pair of glasses that had a magnifier that protruded out on the right lens, and the left lens was blocked. And out of the right lens came this wire, and there was this tube. And the tube, you turn a switch, and it would light up the magnifier. He said, put that on. He says, "Let me give you a piece of paper." So he gave me a piece of paper. And I held it away, and he said, No, Mike, don't hold it away. Put it up against the lens. So I pushed it up against the lens. And I could see letters. And I could see a word. And I was just amazed. I couldn't believe it. Here I am looking at words and looking at letters. And I said to him, "Oh." He said, "This is a device that is used." And they just started around the 60s to experiment with a lot of magnification. And this was called a Keeler magnifier, which was that was the thing that turned my life around at that time. And matter of fact, I still have the Keeler magnifier sitting on top of my drawer, and in my drawer. And every time when I get down, I look at this Keeler magnifier and say, "This is it. This is the thing that changed my life."
How relieved were you? Just like so incredibly happy?
Oh, I was like, it was like, just knew I could see print, I could see letters. And I left and I purchased it. And at that time, this is, you got to realize, it's in 1960, 61. I purchased, it cost me $180 to buy this magnifier, this new thing. And I went out and I left there and I went into a bookstore. and I bought a book in grammar. I bought a book on spelling. I bought a book on all these basic things because I wanted to learn to read. Now that I had this thing, and I would go home, and I was at home, and I'd study, and I'd read, and I was reading about 15 hours a day. My eyeball was kind of killing me, but I was reading.
That's so impressive.
Yeah.
Well, you become motivated. You realize I felt at that time, prior to receiving this aid, that I wasn't capable of learning. You start internalizing all these things. I'm not as good as this person. I'm not as good as that person. I don't feel... And you start realizing, then I started to realize that I was just like everybody else. All I needed was some adaptations, an opportunity. And that's what happened. And it changed my whole life.
So do you ever wish that maybe when you were a kid you had a different mindset and you weren't so negative about the situation you were in?
Well, when you're going through it, and I found when I was very young, I was very angry. Because I came from East Boston, and I came from an Italian family, and, they treated me, just like everybody else. But because my parents didn't have the education when it came to someone having visual impairments, what to do with them, they assumed that a lot of things that I did, I could see. Because I walked around, I didn't bump into anything, they assumed that I could see very well, but I couldn't. And that was a big, big challenge for me to adjust to my parents knowing that I couldn't see. And one of my friends would go outside and these guys would be playing ball or to be doing things that required vision. I couldn't do it. And I used to get so frustrated and angry, and I started to blame other people. You start looking for excuses. And that was the story of my life when I was very young, looking at excuses. And then I realized, when I said, who is the biggest problem? Me. I was angry with myself. And once I came to grips with that, everything opened up. Life is just, it's exciting. It's been wonderful. But I feel bad because I missed out on, from 8 until I was 22. All those years I was so angry. I wouldn't talk. I was shy. I stayed away from people, because I had this inferiority complex. Never realizing that everybody's like everybody else. Everybody has fears. You really don't. And not that people don't go through this. It just was I was going through this, but plus I was very angry with myself. And then when you can't read, that's the thing that really frustrated me more than anything. I couldn't read a book. Newspapers were great. I remember my friends talking about the funnies. And I'd say, the funnies, what are the... I couldn't read it. And they would be... And it used to embarrass me. I just like to tell you one story to show you how embarrassing life is when you have a poor self-image. I used to go to school in another town, and I'd have to take the subway. And I would take the subway, and I made sure every day I wore a hat, because I never liked to look at anybody. See, when I'd stand close to someone, I felt inferior. I didn't want to look at anyone, keep my head down, so I put a hat. Well, this morning I was late, and my mother said, Mike, you got to get to school. Come on. So I ran out without a hat on. And I get down into the subway, and I'm standing there and said, oh, gosh, I forgot my hat. Now I'm starting to sweat, and I'm getting more and more frustrated, and I'm getting anxiety setting in. And happened to be to my left was a paper stand. I said, I'll buy a paper. So I bought it was called a Record American at that time. I got the Record American, and the train came. And I'm sitting in the train, and I said, I don't have to look at it. I'll hold the paper like this. I opened up the paper, and I'm like this. Now, I can't see it. I can't see the print and stuff. And here's this very nice older woman. Excuse me. I didn't know you could read print upside down. And the paper upside down. That destroyed me even worse. I get up, the next stop, I get off the train. But those are things you do, crazy things. You do silly things when you don't feel good about yourself. It's just, and I look back and I say, what a waste of time. What a waste of time. I wasted all those wonderful years when there's so much to do, enjoy so many things, and I didn't get to enjoy them. That's the only thing I regret. But everything else, life has been wonderful. It's been great. I've learned tremendously from it.
That's amazing. Well, it's been great talking to you, but we have to take a quick break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back in just a few minutes. So, Mike, I understand that you've been working with the Perkins School for the Blind for years and years. What's that like, and how did you get involved in that?
I heard about a job many, many years ago, and I applied for it. It was working with deaf-blind children during their off-school hours. And that got me started at Perkins, and Perkins is a dynamic environment for blind, also individuals that have hearing impairments, and having other disabilities. So it's a school that serves a wide variety of
So not
individuals.
just for visually impaired people, it's
No,
for a
it's
lot
not.
of, I didn't know that.
Right. We serve a wide variety of individuals, from the age of infants up to people 22.
Wow.
Oh.
So, as a child, you were really negative about the whole situation you were in, and now working at Perkins, do you try to inspire other young students into looking at their life in a positive way and showing them how they can just be like everybody else and everybody has their own flaws, and to look past that and try to move on?
There are times when I sit in on the classes and they ask me to talk a little bit about myself and some of the experiences I've had, and talk a little bit about the challenges that these young people will have when they step out into society. So we try to really give our kids an opportunity to be realistic in what their goals should be and how they could achieve successfully in life.
So I understand you met your wife, Patty, at Perkins. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I met my wonderful wife, Patty, at Perkins. She was a teacher. She taught students, and at that time I was the head of the physical education department, and I taught elementary school kids physical education and swimming. And I happened to have her students for classes, and I got to meet her, and we got together. And matter of fact, I was taking some courses at Boston University, getting an advanced degree. She did reading for me. She was my reader. So, and then we got together, and it's been exciting.
Oh,
We've
such
been
a nice
married
story.
for 42 years.
Oh, wow.
Where's the time going?
How long have you been at Perkins for?
I've been at Perkins for 50 years. This is my 50th
50
year.
years.
Yes,
Are they
50
doing
years.
any kind of
Wow.
celebration for you for your 50th year?
I would like to think they would give me hundreds and thousands. No, not really. You know, they recognize their staff, their teachers, like for 5 years, 10 years. I suspect that they will
Yeah.
we have an assembly, and they'll mention my name as someone that's been there.
So you said before that you were a physical education
Yeah.
teacher. How did you go about that? And is it difficult for you, being visually impaired, to teach people about sports?
Well, when I was younger, I had a little more sight, and I really, to teach skills, one has to know the skill and how to break it down, and I had a good idea of doing that. And it was challenging, but I focused on that because I liked to see people changing physically. And I felt that I could make a difference with individuals who had disabilities, to show them skills and how they could be very active if they followed a regiment and how they did things.
Are there any
That's
sorts of
great.
new technologies now that help students who are visually impaired play sports and other activities?
Well, I think technology has exploded for individuals who are disabled, not only the blind or physically handicapped. We have computers now that talk. We have machines that I have a little machine. It's like a cell phone. I can place it 5 inches above a document, press a button, it takes a picture, I turn it over, and it reads it to me. You know, technology has exploded to give disabled people.
amazing.
Yeah, really, things are changing, and giving people, like I can go on the website. I never go on the website before. Now I go on the website because my computer talks. I write a thing down, it says it back to me. I can do emails back and forth. It's wonderful.